Hi, and thanks for tuning in. This is the Foldr introduction webinar recorded as part of the Select Tech webinar series. So we're going to jump straight into the action now with our presenter, Damien Pothecary, on the Foldr solution. Enjoy.
So I do want to introduce Foldr. Foldr has been part of the Select Tech price book now for, and the guys will probably have to correct me when I'm wrong here, for a couple of years actually, I think. And I think it's safe to say certainly for the first year, we didn't really have a handle on Foldr as a product. I think it's safe to say we knew it was a very clever bit of kit, and we knew it did all sorts of very whizzy IT type things, which obviously we've got people that did understand how it did them. But from a market perspective, how did that fit with our channel? How did it really gel with our kind of paper cut type resellers and so on? And that took us a real while to get our head around it. And we started to revisit Foldr around a year ago, and really sat down with the guys in the Foldr crew and started talking to them about things that we could just tweak and change to kind of push this into a commercial shape that made a lot of sense for our resellers. And I think, and hopefully, if my systems hold up today, not a Foldr, but if my systems hold up today, you'll kind of start to see how it really gels and how it really fits, and a couple of really logical commercial values that the product brings as well. But to explain Foldr, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that there is a cartoon unicorn on my screen. The guys in Select Tech give me a really hard time with my love of unicorns. But there is a point to this, okay? When we're looking for product, we're looking for clever products that look nice, are well supported, have a great history, have real interesting commercial values, deliver something smart to the channel, that really have value, but we really don't want them to be entering into a competitive space. We're looking for unicorns, essentially. We're looking for things that are just enormously hard to find, these little gem products. And I think, and this is open to debate potentially, and the guys will all be throwing buns at me and stuff, virtually, that Foldr is probably the biggest unicorn product of all of the ones that we have, from this kind of really clever perspective that just really hasn't been found by the channel. On any one day, Foldr tell us that they have around 250,000 iOS applications happening alone, and you'll see today that that's just one tiny segment. They've been developing this product for around 7 or 8 years now. It spans 5 different application platforms. It has literally hundreds of sites across thousands of users, across millions of shares. And conservatively, when we tried to work it out, Chris at Foldr came out with numbers that he figured were in billions in terms of documents handled, moved, managed, and shared within Foldr. So it's a unicorn. You've never heard of it, but you really should. It's a hard thing to find, which is cool because we did the finding for you. Now, part of the problem with Foldr when we started to play with it is that it is a very IT-centric product. A lot of people who are using Foldr are using it for very powerful SSO reasons, or particularly complex infrastructure requirements. And that's really where we went wrong. And in a way, we needed to dumb it down a little bit for us to really find the value of the product. So I kind of bring it down to this. Foldr allows us to find stuff. Okay, we can start to find documents across any storage repository on almost any kind of content, which is really cool. It allows us to share stuff regardless of where it is and regardless of who to, and it allows us to secure that stuff regardless of where the person we're sending it to is, and to audit that trail as well. So I can find stuff wherever it might be, I can share it to anyone regardless of how they need to access it, and I can make sure that that whole process is secure. And it is really, really simple to do. So we're actually just going to try and use it today. Now, I will say today, I'm going to be using a load of different platforms and a load of different tools. So I'll do my best to not get too click happy and too lost, because there's going to be a lot of windows. So I do apologize if anything does go wrong. It's not Foldr, it's the fact that I'm trying to do too much, I guess, and my small, simple brain can't keep up. So I'm going to lose my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so the first thing is that we're going to log into this is actually a Foldr NFR. This is the one that we host, and this is you know, for the real technical guys in there, this is actually being shared out by a reverse proxy. It's a fairly simplistic system. It's nothing massively complex, and I'm just going to sign into Foldr, and we'll just take a look through the front end of it. There we go. And first thing that you see when you log into the Foldr web interface is my files. And the really nice piece about this is you'll see that I've got my home folder here. I've got a link to a Dropbox account, a network shared folders, or a network share. This is a Windows server literally sat on the floor under a desk in our office in Basingstoke. We could come into Google Drive, OneDrive, and this list could go on because I could throw SharePoint into the mix. I could put more team stuff in, multiple servers, anything you like. So this hits the first real skill of Foldr is I can pull all these different storage spaces into one specific interface, which is really cool. From a document management type of approach to this, because we can search and access anything from one place, it means that your customers can leverage the storage they have. So if they're OneDrive subscribers, if they're Google subscribers, and they've got all that free storage, they can use all that stuff and start to put the power above that. It also means if you're you know, a print reseller and you've been selling MFDs and scanning files, or having customers scan files with no content management for probably a couple of decades, really, and they're all over the place with nothing other than a probably inaccurate file name, those documents are now fair game wherever they lie. So from the sales perspective, work out who's scanning stuff, work out where it is, and go and fix their GDPR issue by crawling those documents wherever they lie. Search in place. Really difficult thing to do. Foldr does it brilliantly. Doesn't matter where it's stored. There you go. First thing. So take a look around the interface here and you see how easy this is actually happening. So I'm going to use a Windows share today. So I'm not getting all the tricks of a OneDrive or a Google account. I'm actually using a Windows server. And this is my little demo space right here. And so we're actually going to start by, well, just creating a new folder. That's it. So I'm doing this via the, let's call this the project, because that's what we're actually going to do. So there you go, just created a new folder on the drive, no problem. And I'm actually going to drag some documents into it. You can see here that I've got a couple of basic files. These are TIFF files, and I've got some PDFs and other stuff here as well. So I'm going to just go ahead and select some of those. And again, for some of you guys, you'll notice that I'm using a Mac, but we will be coming across different platforms today as well. And I'm just going to dump those into that space. There we go. And I'm actually going to pick up a couple of them and move them all around into different places. There we are, as you'd expect. I'm just dragging and dropping through my Windows server, nothing particularly smart going on here. There we go, pick that one up, dump that in there, and pick this one up, dump that one there. Lovely. Okay, so from a user perspective, I could scan into watch folders that are hooked up to this. I could drag and drop into this. I can even turn on email into Foldr, which we'll show you right now, which is great. And I can start to search in place. So I just dumped a few of those documents. Let's just do this. And you can see that that share is already starting to pull back results as I dump in content across those pieces. There's the documents that I just threw in, a vendor invoice that we put there, and a drawing file that I just dragged and dropped, and you can see that. And I'm searching on the content. And this basic search is like a fuzzy search tool, if you like. It's starting to search across content, file name, location. But I could come into this advanced area and add a search and say, well, actually, I just want to search on the content, and this should 0282. How impressed are you, Ben? I can actually remember a number that long on a Friday.
I'm beside myself with emotion.
Blown away with that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can see that I'm starting to pull back documents with specific content, but more importantly, I'm starting in one search to be able to pull these back against all of these different shared locations. So now I don't care where things are stored, and I can take a look at it. So I'm actually going to bring this up and view it. There we go. And you can see that I'm pulling back documents with some hit highlighting across them. And I could even start to pin things. So as I find documents, I can start to pin them as I look across all these different searches. And I can say, do you know what? These are the documents that I need for my project, whatever that might be. And anywhere I can say, having searched all the way around on content, on folder, on file, on anything else, that these are the documents that I've been looking for. And if I wanted to, I could quite happily pull those into a single project bundle and download them. So I'm searching on content, I'm searching on file name, I'm searching on date ranges. In fact, let's just take a quick look at that. The different things that are available to me. So I could search and say, well, I know which of my shares they're actually in. So I want to limit that actually. Thanks very much. Let's just do that. There's my bricks demo space. I'm going to choose that. I might want to do some contents and say there is not actually an invoice. So please exclude all of those. Okay. I might want to start looking at modified date ranges. So I can say, well, only anything that happened between then and even down to the time, which I think is a bit extreme personally. But there we go. And we can, you can see you can build this up and build really quite complex searches and change the whole structure of how it's looking across all those different shares, which frankly, it's fast. The real unique of this is that regardless of where those documents are held, if it's doing OCR, if it's crawling their metadata, it's creating one central database for that. So it's not looking across the Google storage or the OneDrive storage. It's actually running its own OCR and it's running its own centralized database, which makes it enormously powerful. But let's just do something a little bit else as well. These bookmarks, moving around files and folders, obviously gets a little bit complex in some cases. So what I might want to do is bookmark a file. So at any time when I come in, I can just thump on the bookmarks and there's my record. What happens if they move though? Let's go back into my, oops, sorry, wrong click. Into that network shared folder, come into the bricks demo space. I think I just bookmarked one of these guys and I'm gonna move that one. So I'm actually gonna stick that somewhere else and stick it in the contracts file. There we go. But as I come back to bookmarks, it will still take me to where it was. So those bookmarks are live, and if people move files, they'll remain completely the dynamic. The bookmarks and links to them will remain exactly where I want them to be. And of course, the search will still work because the database on the content knows where it's actually gone. So now I can create very fast links. I can pull documents into a single download bundle. I can search on the content regardless of where the documents are. If the documents aren't text searchable already, they can be OCR'd and crawled regardless of which repository they're actually sat in. And I'm doing all this via a web browser, so I don't need a specific application. I can do all this wherever it might be, which is all, well, frankly, pretty clever. So, search in place, again, is a really difficult thing to achieve regardless.
And Damien, sorry, just a quick question while we're there. Brendan has asked, do these documents need to be text searchable?
If they are already text searchable, then they're fair game. If they're not text searchable, then Foldr has an OCR engine and crawl process built into it.
Thank you.
And it can run multiple appliances actually. So this is worth, from a technical perspective, noting this. The license of Foldr says you can run as many appliances as you like, so you can spread that search and crawling load across as many server resources as you want. In fact, one thing to throw out there, again, I'm not sure on the audience, guys, or how technical you are. If you're super technical, don't ask me anything too complicated because we'll need to ask someone else. But from a basic understanding, you never install Foldr. And what I mean by that isn't that it's a SaaS model that we turn on. The product is, in fact, an appliance. You simply turn it on. You spin it up either in a virtual environment, if that's the customer has a virtual environment, or it can go on to a piece of hardware on the metal, depending on how you want it to work. But you don't install Foldr, you turn it on, which means that every build, frankly, is a perfect build. So it's enormously efficient to get working, which is kind of really cool. So hold on a second, I need to delete my email. There we go. Right. Okay. So I don't want to labor the point. Search in place, huge. You know, all the other stuff that Foldr can do, single sign-on stuff, linking applications together, enormously clever. But search in place, really, really powerful, very fast, very configurable, it allows users to leverage the subscriptions they already have. It means commercially you're not having a conversation with someone that kind of says, oh, well, we're paying for Google Drive or OneDrive, we've got all this space, why do we want to put it somewhere else? It allows you to turn on a single interface. And as someone who does quite a lot of user training and has played with Google and OneDrive, and actually a Mac user who has to try and fight with Teams, because that's such a great experience. The power of having one interface, okay? Being able to train users on one interface, regardless of whether they're using their network folder, Google, OneDrive, Teams, all of that good stuff, and being able to show them how to share and collaborate with people outside of their organization. Anyone who's had that lovely message that Team throws in that says, you are not authorized to access this team session from outside the org. I mean, honestly. So don't underestimate the real benefit of talking to a customer about being able to train and create a document on how this thing works.
Damien, sorry, just to add as well, we've got a couple more questions coming out. I'm just going to ping them over to you so you can so you get a chance to have a slurp of water as well. It's questions. Will it find text within an image?
Yeah.
And so that's a yes to that one. Thank you.
A caveat on that. It's an OCR engine. So it's configurable, but it depends, you know, if it's particularly heavy graphical text or it's part of a logo, then perhaps not. But, you know, within the rules of a standard kind of OCR engine, it can do.
And a couple more. Is the process of crawling an OCR included, or is it an extra cost? I think that's no, it's not an extra cost. It's included within the product. That
is one of my all-time annoyances about Foldr, is I keep asking them to stop adding features to the product because it does so much, and please could we have them as commercial bolt-ons. Foldr's take on this is no, you cannot. The product needs to be as all-encompassing as it can. So no, there is no additional charge to turn on the OCR engines.
And the last one is, does it integrate with Ldap for security permissions?
It does, and it does it in a really smart way as well. At no point does it import users. What it does is it interrogates AD via Ldap as it goes. So you never actually have users within Foldr. It references them on the fly. So for this network share that I'm using, for example, I have permissions as a user. The system account that Foldr is using will check those credentials against that, which means that you don't need to replicate credentials for network resources within Foldr. It's using the credentials that you have set anyway. So yes, it does is the answer to that, but it does it in a really smart way. And there's an awful lot around security right the way up to 2FA and beyond. In and around Foldr. It's safe to say that whilst Chris Wheeler and the guys in Foldr are enormously clever, they know enough about these different systems to be paranoid in the extreme. So the security is quite remarkable and very well documented. We had an example a few weeks ago where we were using Foldr in a health environment, a hospital, and we actually had to, having turned Foldr on, had to go back to the customer and ask them to improve the security of their SharePoint environment due to flaws that we'd uncovered with Foldr. So yeah, security is mad, user control is mad. Does that answer those, Ben?
Certainly does, my friend. That's that for now. Thank you.
Marvellous. I've just realised as well, looking at this, because of the lack of open barbers in the UK, I'm looking more like a mad scientist with my hair every day.
It's not a bad look. It's not a bad look.
You like that? All right. Okay. Cool. Okay. So, laboured the point now around search in place, but it truly is remarkable. And like I say, with price points and everything else, you are simply not going to do that in any other tool, as far as I can see, which is kind of cool. So I want to go on to the next bit now. Big thing, everyone's working from home, collaboration. We have a customer that we put this product into. They're a team customer, if you like. They work with us and develop and kind of feedback on how the product works for them. And they managed to take their entire office-based business into a home working-based business with no IT changes, because they use Foldr already, in a morning. They literally told everyone to come into the office, collect their PCs, put them in their car and go home. And the whole business carried on working. Customers ATS, we love them because they're very nice to us, but at the same time, they like us because they love the product. And commercially, when they first started testing the product, they wanted 20 seats for one project for 12 months. They tested the product, they bought 60 seats for 5 years. So that, you know, they can really tell you how powerful that search in place and that sharing piece was. But now that they were working from home, and everybody kind of is, one of the things that really causes people a huge amount of problem is collaboration. So we find a lot, that whole thing about trying to share documents outside of the platform you use. So for example, I do not have a commercial Microsoft account. It causes me pain almost daily. If I share something from our Google environment, because we are a SelectTech a Google customer, it causes the people I'm trying to share things with pain daily. So how do I enable collaboration, and how does Foldr help me with that? And so we're actually going to work this out. So I'm going to come back into this, and like I've said, I'm doing this the hard way. This is a Windows share. This isn't OneDrive or Google. This is an SMB share on a Windows file server. And here's my little demo space, and here's my little project folder. We just created this folder. I don't know if there's anything in it. There you go. There's one drawing file. And so what I want to do is be able to share that. So I'm going to do this. Oh, in fact, no. Let's go even more public. So there we go. I'm just going to turn it on, and I'm going to call this project demo. I still can't type without looking at my keyboard. 20 years in, I figure I'm never going to get it. And you'll see from that, this link is never going to expire. So I'm going to update that. There we go. That's kind of cool. And I have a link there. I'm going to copy and paste that one. I'm going to open myself a private window. There we are. Okay. And I'm going to paste it in there. So you can see I'm not logged in. I've got no credentials. I've got nothing else. And there's my document. I can view it. I can download it. I can take a look at it. In fact, let's actually just do that. You can see. There we go. There's my drawing file. There's my header, so on. Okay, so let's close that out. Okay, done. And just to add a little bit of cool to that, there we go. Let's turn on, if you guys have an iPhone, there's my battered old iPhone. I'm going to turn on my turn on Reflector so you can see this. And this is where things are going to get a little bit interesting, guys. Hopefully Reflector is going to fire up a code for me any second now. Come on, there we go. 7439. All right. Okay, there's my MacBook. And if I turn on my camera, you should be able to see my desk. Here we go. Here's my myriad of screens. There's me. And let's move that over. And if you haven't done it yourself already, you should now see that I just zapped that QR code and I've taken myself directly on my iPhone to the same document. There we go. And that's on
one of the guys who've done it as well. They've just said wow, did it themselves. Thank you for that. We've proved it. Yeah.
Is that a stooge? Is that one? How
it was Brendan. He's done it himself. So thank you for doing that, Brendan. And Nick, that works. There we go.
I owe you a drink. Marvelous. Let's take a look. And okay, so we can see as well as I update this, I can see all you nice public users taking a look at this thing. So I think there's possibly more than just Brendan, unless Brendan looked at it an awful lot. Okay.
There's 2 or 3 of them saying they've done it now. So there we go.
How cool is that, guys? It's pretty good, isn't it? And we can kind of see where you're at. If I update it, we'll see some more. Okay. So that's a public link, which is really good. We actually see customers embedding a panel into a web page. So there's a particular school, for example, that uses a shared folder with a public link page to share policy documents, which means that every time they update those policies, they don't need to upload and embed new links in their web page or their intranet. It's a great way of sharing documents. We had a project, myself and Lee, it was another healthcare project where they did have a core of users in the organization that needed a very powerful doc management tool, and we offered our Square 9 product into there. But they also had 800 users that weren't IT facing, and those were the guys that, you know, like, frankly, they were janitors and you know, facilities people. They weren't IT facing, but they needed access to policy documents, they needed access to contract documents and things like that. They didn't have any organization IT, and so this was a really fast way of doing that and allowing auditable and traceable access to stuff. So the next question that normally spans out of this is, that's great, but it's not very secure. So let's start to take a look about where that takes us. So the first thing is I could just apply a password to that. Okay, I'm going to do that. Our Foldr isn't happy with the password, as you can see, and who blames them at that point? But if I now update that, to access that share again, you should need a password. So you could do something quite simple as a distributed password to a share. Even Foldr would tell you they're not particularly happy with that. So, you know, we would want to go a little bit further. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to update it. But what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to require this to be, you can see ATS is in there from a test and demo perspective, which is really nice. Okay, I'm going to require this to be secured with an account within Foldr to actually take that forward. So external users, and this is where life gets a lot more interesting. So I'm going to update that. Okay, and any second now I should receive an email, and let me just drag a mail client, and you can see that I'm using a Hotmail account here. This isn't something that has been set up in you know, we're not kind of cheating and using anything else. Let's do this all live. This is where I was terrified, Ben, because we really are outside of anywhere safe now. So there we go.
Uncharted waters.
Here be dragons. Right, okay. And you can see that the Foldr is now going to take me out, and it's going to, I was already logged in, so let's sign out of that. Okay, and it's going to require me to have an account, and you can see that it's going to ask me to choose which is the correct icons. I really love the way they've done this, actually. I think it's really kind of cool. So I'm going to choose the camera icon. Okay, it's going to email me a verification code. So let's fire up my emails, and there comes my verification code. I'm going to copy that rather than pasting it. I could be doing this in any environment, actually, and I'm going to give this, I'm not going to use a Mac password for this demo. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give it a password, super secure password, Ben. You'll never guess what it is.
I'm going to take one guess.
You are? All right. Okay, there we go. And I'm now going to log in. As you can see, it's I'm going to type that. Bosh. And so now I'm secure and I'm ready to go. And you can see that I've actually turned on submissions. One of the options there, that if you'd have seen it, was the ability for me to allow secured users to deliver files back into the Foldr. And if it was a public viewer, they weren't allowed to do that. But I've turned that on for this. So let's just take a look here and say that I am going to dump a document up into there. And that's going to be really cool. We can do that. And move back out. So as a secure user, I've gained access, I know where I'm going, that's all good, and I've dropped a folder back in, and you can see that it's created a folder upload file for me automatically. And as I do that, it's also dumped the file name in there. So you can see that it's created a structure based on the logged in user, which means that if I've got a share and I'm sharing stuff and I'm allowing people to modify that document and throw it back in for collaboration, it's separating them automatically into subfolders, and it's keeping the files in there so I know who did this. So I can send stuff out and send it back. And this was a Hotmail account. This wasn't a user in my domain. They didn't ask me at any point whether I had a 365 space. I'm using a Windows file server, nothing else. And so on. So suddenly this is a really simple way to move files and folders around and doing different stuff. So I'm actually going to sign out at that point and come back in as me. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Okay, hold on. Let's just close that out. So we've moved around, we've done stuff. That's kind of cool. That's it's really nice. So let's take a look at how those users and groups interact, because when they're external users, and let's try and put ourselves in the right space actually. Those external users that we created the shares for, you can see that I've got a fast way of finding the shares by me. There's that project folder. As I came in there, I could see that public link. I could see the external users that are in there. I could see which activities are in here as well. So you can see that submission piece has gone in. So I'm starting to get some real auditable trail stuff in here. But as I look at the actual admin area, this is the configuration area for Foldr. So I come in, I've got the activity piece. It's asking me to log in as an admin. There we go. All right. And you can see everything that's happening, including my public facing IP, where I am, who it is. Oh, so someone, who is this guy? There we go, some Firefox on Android. That's well, pretty cool compared to Apple WebKit on iPhone. All right, so we can see who you guys are, where you want, where those documents were. We start to pull some reports, you know, based on who the active users were. You can see that this is an Ldap account. That was that external account. We can start to pull it in by configuration stuff, who did what, and I can start to filter this as well on specific activities. So I would like to see who downloaded an item, please. And these are the downloads that I am today or whenever, doing different stuff. You can see I've been playing with this all week. So now I have a really granular view of what happened, where it happened, what was going on by any kind of you know, activity that I can filter out. So if we're thinking about our GDPR rules, we're less worried, if you like, around security. We know security is cool, but I need a process of being able to identify when there's been a problem, identify how it happened, and resolving that. And suddenly Foldr gives us that kind of view. And allows us to do something else. I just want to talk about sharing. One other way also is receiving emails. As we're starting to collaborate, if we're talking about our friends at ATS and their contractors, they use a lot of subcontractors. They're in construction or in manufacturing, and they obviously need to be able to get things like insurance certificates and site survey documents and all kinds of stuff. What they were doing was they were emailing a lot of those documents and moving them around. Problem with that is they're now in someone's outbox, they're in someone's inbox, you've got version issues, you've got other control problems. One of the things you can do within Foldr is you can quite simply allow email into a file. So I could turn this on and allow people to physically email documents into that project demo folder with or without the body text as well. And I could turn that on and off. So I could quite simply say, right, I'm building up a project folder. I need this. Please create these subfolders, email your documents to this address, rather than creating 365 accounts and so on. So we were talking to a customer this week, and they have external users that are attached to them, but they don't want to pay subscriptions for 365 accounts for those guys. They don't want to give them email inboxes and so on. So another way of solving that is allowing email reception into folders in this way. There we go. And this is very granular as well, by the way. You can change how the file names are created based on the different elements of the email and so on. It's a really powerful tool, certainly for project collaboration, which is really cool. There we go. All right. So we've been using public links at this stage, which is all very cool, but it only allows me to use that web browser. So you know, there is a bunch of different applications available. So we said at the beginning that we're not precious about the type of platform that we're using. We're not specific to Windows or Mac or iOS or anything else. But when I'm using those external users like that, they can only use that web interface. They can drag and drop if it's secured, and they can download and view, and they can do things like that. But if I wanted to give them more of the functionality of Foldr, we have Windows clients, Mac clients, and so on, which you'll see in a little minute. But we also have native applications for Android and iOS and email as well. So let's kind of take a look at what happens with that, because if I come into this and we go to those users and groups, you can see there's that account that was created, okay, and where it was signed in. So this is that external Hotmail account. I signed in and it created that Foldr user for me. So if I come in here, you can see it's an external user, and that has an implication actually in terms of licensing as well, because external users do not require Foldr licenses, which is kind of useful. They don't get all the functionality, but they don't take up a seat. But I could now say, well, actually, I want to become a local Foldr user, okay? Which means that I can now, even though that user isn't part of my domain, they're not part of my security system or whatever, I can create them an account within my Foldr appliance that allows them to have more access. So I'm going to update that. I'm going to turn that around, which is really nice. And then I'm going to look at my my shares, because we've got this bricks share, which goes specifically to where we want it. Now I'm going to come into that. Now that's a shortcut to, you can see it's an SMB share, all right? And I'm going to make it quite specific to that projects folder, okay? I ought to check that it was projects. I'm going to save those changes, just a little minute. And I'm going to test that, just to make sure that that's actually doing what I wanted to do. I'm going to refresh my files. And now, we've got no control over that. Who am I logged in as? There we go. All right. And I'm going to add, oh, hold on. Let's just make sure I've got the file name correct. It's project, which is why it failed. So let me fix that. Let me take that S off. There we go. Save changes. That should now work. And refresh my files. And you can see that now that the share works, it came back because I got rid of my typo. And when it takes me in there, it's taking me directly into the projects folder, whereas before it was going to the file up. So now I know I've got the right share. So that's kind of cool. Let's grant access. Let's add that that user to this share. There we go. And I'm going to give them read and write access. And let's update that. So, and I'm going to save the changes. Really cool. Now I'm going to go a little bit off piste again. Let's see what happens, and let's try and get a bit of reflector going. Now, guys, I need to apologize here. I'm about to use my MacBook, my iPad. I don't really use an iPad very much, and since the lockdown came, I left this one in the house for my wife to use, which means that my children stole it, which means that every time I pick it up, it's now full of even more interesting applications. I think you'll see Sky Girls is a particularly interesting one, and the Unicorn Hair Salon is also another big favorite of mine, as you will see as I move this iPad onto the thing. But I'm now going to come into Foldr, and this is the Foldr app. This is kind of really cool. So I'm going to use the Ldap Apothecary. You're crossing your fingers for me, Ben. .co.uk. And the password was password 123. I'm going to sign in. And here I am. Here's my files. There's bricks. That's the only thing that I can get access to. There's my folder. That's what's going on. And I can kind of take a look at that. And I'm going to say, oh, there it is. And actually, I'd like to annotate that record, please. So I'm going to actually do this with my finger. Let's blow that out and say, well, actually, let's do it. There we go. I need to highlight this section of the drawing and that component, please. And I'd also like to kind of make a point about this one. And then I think I'm going to do that. So I will talk about this drawing number.
Just while we're doing this, there's a couple of questions coming. I'm trying to sort of get as much information as I can. So I've sort of tried to answer this one, but Regan has asked, are there restrictions on uploads? That's good. That's what I said.
Reply, you can configure that, but basically permissions are driven by the user settings. So yeah.
And Brendan has asked, I'll just try and get the information in it, sorry. Is it only named users' email addresses in the download link, or can you put multiple? So what's written is sharing with the named external users, Hotmail, for example, but that was explicit to that one user. Can we email a DL with multiple users in the DL? They all receive the email, and is it using the DL email addresses or the underlying email users' email accounts to provide access?
Okay. If they're external users, you're going to need to send them to the individual email addresses. Yeah. If they're internal users, then you could send them to an internal group, because they are different features effectively. If you think about it, as external users, you wouldn't necessarily, I mean, if to be fair, you've got some kind of forwarding piece, it doesn't really make any difference. But what it's looking to do is that thing where it's securing against the email, sending an email to confirm that with the code and so on. So they will need to find a way to link to that external. So if it's an internal share with local or domain users, then yes, you could use a group thing. And in fact, you could use the notifications piece. If it's external, then you will need to explicitly put all their email addresses in, but you can do multiples at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. All right, so I've got this PDF. It's been shared with me. I'm using a Hotmail account. I'm not on the domain. I'm going to do this. So I'm actually going to save it. There we go. Save and upload a copy. There we go. And in a little minute, we'll update that. There we are. And as we come back into it, you can see that it's added another component here. Look, there we are. So we've now got our copy, and that one now has annotations, and that's now available. But let's take a look here. Now we talked about multiple platforms. In fact, before I do that, I just want to do one other thing, which I think is super cool. Here we go. Now, as somebody who's out and about, I don't know if you can see this, but there we go. I'm going to use the camera document scan thing. There we are. There we go. I'm going to turn that into a grayscale document, and I'm going to say done. And I'm going to save that as a PDF file. And that's now been uploaded. Text document uploaded via the camera on my iPad. So there we go. I'm going to get that iPad out of the way. Let's talk about a couple of other things. Okay.
That's what I actually use in the day-to-day demo for my receipts and expenses and things like that through Foldr. It is absolutely magical, that document scanner.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look now, which is great because I'm a Mac user. So normally the wheels fall off as soon as I want to use shared storage. Just to show off a little bit, this last kind of little thing. Oh, there we go. All right. Bosh. So here I am on my Mac. There's my files. There's my demo using a Hotmail account. There's that PDF file, and that's available on my Mac. Okay. And here is a Windows machine. So let's pull that up. So we've used an iPhone. We've used an iPad. Let's sign in here and just make sure that we can see it on the PC as well. Ugh, hate Windows machines. See? d.pothecary@hotmail.co.uk, and we're going to go next, and I'm going to give it a password, and I'm going to sign that in as well, just so we can see that. And there you go. So I'm on a Windows PC. There it is. I'm on a Mac. There's that. I was on my iPad, as you've seen. I think it's safe to say that in terms of portability, I'm now back in my web browser, and away it goes. Let's take one last little look at how it's going to search for stuff. And in bricks, on content, there we go, is a picture of the the song lyrics that we took through the screen grab through my iPad with the screen scanner, which has been content searched and pulled up in a web browser on a different machine. And at that point, mate, I'm going to drop the mic.
So a big thank you to Damo and all the team for that fantastic demonstration. As you can see, this is an incredibly powerful product, and as we said before, we call it the powerhouse of remote working. So if you do want to get any further information from any of the team at Selectech, then please just get in touch with your account manager or drop us an email to sales@selectech.com. Keep an eye on our website and social media pages to find out when the next webinar in the series is, and thank you very much for watching. Take care of each other.